Bold predictions for your Minnesota Wild ahead of the start of training camp. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild. Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That's right. Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And welcome into the debut episode of the Locked On Wild YouTube channel. Make sure to hit subscribe on YouTube. Turn those notifications on so you don't miss out on any of our daily episodes, as well as our daily content all throughout the season. We're blowing the doors off on this thing. So subscribe everywhere and you will not miss a thing on what we expect will be a very exciting training camp ahead of the regular season. Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, here with you. I'm joined by Zach Zeman. And Zach, it is another Sunday night fresh off of a Minnesota Vikings loss. So we are trying to kind of build the room back up, and no better way to do that than by debuting the show on YouTube and trying to come up with some bold takes for the season. How's it going, man?
Look at these upgrades. Look at this. We got the whole green Locked On Wild deal. Do I look good? I think you look good. This is sweet. We're upgrading. We're here. We're fresh on the YouTube scene. So this is great. It's unfortunate how used I am to Vikings losses. Classic field goal deals, and it's just, you gotta switch the subject somehow. And we're here talking about hockey and Wild 6 days away from the first preseason game. I mean, we gotta start talking about something else now. I'm too sick of watching this Vikings team lose. So here we go.
We had the Tom Kurvers Prospect Showcase this weekend. Did you get a chance to watch it at all?
Oh yeah. I mean, Rossi and Boldy, bing and bang, just right away. We all knew they would start in hot. And look at that. They're just carrying this team, making the huge impacts that we knew they would. It's about time. And Rossi and Boldy are just the two beauties coming out of that tournament. I mean, that, as a Wild fan, you love to see that. I mean, finally, the anticipation has been there for those guys to be leaders in the prospect pool. And here we go. We saw it firsthand a couple days of games. And, it's all you can ask for. Just amazing hockey.
My favorite part is that, I know a lot of Wild fans are not going to be shocked by Matt Boldy and Marco Rossi dominating in the Prospect Showcase. I don't know if we expected the both of them to be like Batman and Robin right out of the gate, and just filthy assists by Marco Rossi. I think my favorite part, though, there was one particular play late in the third period where Rossi straight up just pickpocketed a Blackhawks player on his own end. Like, he just straight up was like, that's my puck. That's not your puck. He went full Happy Gilmore on the bit. And, you look at those two, and I think that gives some legitimate hope that when both of them come up, they'll do so at the same time, and that they will be on the same line.
The chemistry these last two games has been insane. I mean, obviously, like you just said, we knew they were going to be great, but great together is something you can ask. That's the best case scenario coming out of these games. I mean, the whole highlight deal is how well, Rossi's just a workaholic addict. All he does is work hard, and now he hits the ice, and we can really see how well he protects the puck. There's a couple of highlights that he has, not only setting up goals, but protecting the puck away and holding on and drawing penalties. I remember he did in the second game, I think third period or something like that, where he was drawing penalties just because of how well he was maintaining puck possession. And the fact that they're already dominating, clearly dominating, says so much about what the future of this team can be in the next couple of years. And boy, is that refreshing. That's the greatest thing that to come out of here is the chemistry between those two is insane.
Couple of other notes and observations from the Prospect Showcase before we get to bold takes for the rest of the episode. This is not meant to be a knock on Dereck Baribeau, and I don't know if he played the whole game or if they switched, because I know they had the 2 goalies listed on the depth chart. I thought Baribeau was fine. He had some really, really good saves. He did have a couple of goals, which has been kind of his tendency, is that he kind of overcommits, especially on like a 2-on-1 or where there are 2 players right in front of the net. He overcommits to one side and leaves, that little tap in on the other end. But like I said, I thought he had some really good saves, but I think once Jesper Wallstedt is a little more seasoned, he is going to vault to, and probably already is, the top goalie prospect in this system. They're just, the Wild really have not had any prospects other than Capo that have been good goalies recently. And so, just drafted, and I think it's safe to say that he is already at the top of that list. So once he's ready, that is going to just further help this prospect pool.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm a big believer in, especially if in goalie development, that a couple of games is not going to define this is who they are every single game. Obviously, goalies have great and bad games, but there's definitely, you're going to need more games than just 2 in one weekend against the same team to figure out which goalies are good and which aren't in scenarios like that. I definitely will give it a couple more games to see how these goalies really pan out. We know Wallstedt's great, so it'll be sick to see how, he comes up maybe, and we'll get him some Iowa. I don't even know. You never really know how these goalies are going to act in different games, arenas, stuff like that. I'm a big believer in giving them a bigger game span, to really figure out who they are. But yeah, we looked great. The goalies are fine. It is relieving just to see, to come out with these wins. I mean, they're not really like huge wins at all, but just to know that you're winning against other teams' prospect does say a lot. So it was really nice to see that.
The other thing that I wanted to key in on too is don't try to convince any of these prospects that this is just a scrimmage, because there were some fists, and at one point there was a fight in the third period. Again, third period just was when everything happened. There was a fight, and I counted something like 8 players whose helmets and gloves were just everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
It's not, we're talking like New York Rangers and the Washington Capitals just dropping gloves at the offset, like that much chaos. And it happened multiple times. So huge underrated part of getting back to playing the Central Division this season is the Blackhawks rivalry is back, and I cannot wait.
That's definitely the big piece too. We got to see Addison even get a little bit into it in the first game, but the Wild moved over to the western part of the United States to play last season, and I think it made a lot of people forget about the rivalry between Chicago and Minnesota. Back in the Parise, Zucker, Suter days in the playoffs, and we finally get to see that team again. And the animosity is still there. There's still stuff happening between those two clubs, and I'm happy to see it. So it's hockey. We're back in the Central Division. This is a completely new season. It just shows you a lot about what these players really want, not only just to show how good they are on the ice, but what the determination level is. It really shows a lot, and the guys are doing whatever they can to impress the coaches here. So it's really nice.
100%. I think that's a nice little bow on the prospect showcase. We'll have plenty more training camp tidbits as we move throughout the preseason and get close to the start of the season in the middle of October. So we're going to continue the discussion. We're going to move, though, to the bold takes. That is coming up here next on Locked On Wild. All right, hockey fans, now I'm going to give you the inside track on fantasy hockey. It's Fantrax. Fantrax free NHL Fantasy Hockey League Manager is the most customizable, easy to use, and feature-rich platform in the industry. You can sign up for free today, and as a special offer for Locked On Wild fans, you'll be entered to win an official NHL-signed Nathan MacKinnon jersey. Simply go to fantrax.com/lockedon to sign up. The top dynasty fantasy hockey platform in the industry, Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Go deep with the ultimate keeper and dynasty leagues. Create a simple redraft league or even a customizable best ball league with up to 2,000 teams. Coming from another service, Fantrax can import any of your current leagues and customize if needed. Ever have a trade go wrong or make a mistake and drop in a player? If you've had leagues on Yahoo or ESPN, migrate to Fantrax for a better experience. Fantrax Commissioner tools allow you to undo any move with one simple click. Again, sign up for free today and be entered to win an official NHL signed Nathan McKinnon jersey. Simply go to fantrax.com/lockedon and sign up today. That's fantrax.com/lockedon. Fantrax, home of fantasy sports. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows, you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all of that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports and movies and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part? There's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. Back here on Locked On Wild, and it is time for bold predictions. Seth Topol and Zach Zeman here with you. And Zach, no shortage of ways to go with this. I have one that I really, really like that I think we'll lead off with because this guy just continues to move his way up the charts. And so I am here to tell you that my first bold prediction for this season is that Nico Sturm is going to have 20 goals for the Minnesota Wild this year. And like when you kind of do the math, it really isn't that far-fetched. He had 11 goals in 50 games this past year. If you take that math and you extrapolate it over the course of an 82-game season, that's 18 goals. So add a couple here and there, an empty netter, one or two, and he's got his 20. I cannot be more enthused and excited with what Nico Sturm brings to the table because he is the burner. He is the deep threat wide receiver that will catch the home run ball every, you hope for one a game. You hope for one like deep threat touchdown a game. Nico Sturm is that guy. And so 20 goals this season, I am fully on the Nico Sturm bandwagon.
Yeah, I mean, relating to the Vikings game today, he'll be like the KJ Osborne, the guy who's just there and you never know about, but he's there when you need him. I totally agree with you on this take. I think you and me are both Nico Sturm stans. I think he's a great – I mean, when you talk about depth in this lineup and Nico Sturm is down there on your bottom six, are you kidding me? That's a great – I mean, Nico Sturm is fast. We all know that he played really well last year in the shortened season. And, I agree with you. I think it's his time to shine. He finally gets the schedule he needs to improve his game against different teams. Nico Sturm, I agree, will get a very great amount of goals considering where he is in the lineup. I think he'll, he probably won't get as much ice time as a lot of the other guys, but he will still make his name, relevant, and he'll get goals. And I think 20 is a great number. I think that's just a fantastic prediction. So I'm right with you on that. So I love that take.
Let's just alternate here. And this will be another thing that we do as we get closer to the start of the season is the line projections. Such a fun thing to do. Everybody does it, where you just try to pick and choose what the line combos will be for the team when the season starts. I would love nothing more than for Sturm to be elevated to the third line, but we'll see. It all depends on a couple of guys that now, after what I saw this weekend, a couple of guys that I think are going to make some noise as to what final line combinations look like.
Yeah, this training camp is going to show a lot, and a lot of people, like I mentioned earlier, are going to show determination to be on this squad. There's going to be a lot of changes. I guarantee you no one will predict any of the lines that'll come out to be true come game one. I think there's just going to be a lot of shuffling. Billy G is going to make the right choices here. You got Boldy and Rossi trying to make their spots known. Freddie Goudreau trying to make his spot known. You never know what's going to happen. And I think, I kind of want to talk about players that need to really step up this year because of these constantly changing rosters. First of all, I want to talk about Matt Dumba. I know the Wild have tried their hardest to save him over these last 2 years. It's time for him to step up. You are now probably on the first pair of defensemen. You're making a lot of money compared to the rest of this team. You're probably one of the highest paid players here. This is your time. The Wild have showed you their appreciation. It's about time you show it back. And I know he's a rowdy guy in the locker room. It needs to step up. He's going to be in a better role this year. He's going to lead this team. They obviously have shown him that they want him to be the leader. They want him to be in the new wave of Wild members. Matt Dumba, this is your year. Do what you can and show this team what you're made of, because it's more essential than ever here. You got to show up. And I think now that he's with Brodin on the first pairing, most likely, Spurgeon, stuff like that, you never know what's going to happen. I literally don't even know what the lines are going to look like. But I know he's going to be one of the better defensemen here, obviously. This is his year. I don't know. He's got to step up. He's got to lead this team. The Wild have done a lot. What do you think about Dumba? I want to know what you think.
You bring up a very interesting point, too, in that I think we've done a lot of penciling Alex Goligoski into that top line.
Yeah.
Because he was signed to fill Ryan Suter's shoes. That may not necessarily be the case.
Yeah.
Dumba to me, I think has been a guy that I think Dumba has been a little better than he is given credit for, but I think he has a tendency to make mistakes at very critical times. I was floored, actually, by and I know it was retweeted by Brett Marshall. I think it might have been a JFresh graphic that had the most turnovers for defensemen this past season, and Dumba was not in the top 10, which honestly surprised me, because if you're watching the game kind of casually and you go through and you're looking at kind of the ebb and flow of the game on Twitter, there were a lot of points where people were critical of things that Dumba did.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, geez, this guy must be turning it over 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 times a game. And so he didn't necessarily do it in a particular volume, but at the same time, he did it at points in the game where it led to critical mistakes. And that was evident in the Vegas series. I know he had the one turnover in the Wild zone that immediately led to a Vegas goal. So if he can kind of clean that stuff up, his offense has been a little concerning over the last couple of years as well. It seems like he has, instead of flatlining and maybe a little bit of a resurgence, he just seems like he's kind of, he started to not be as impactful as he has been over the last couple of years. And so if he can turn that around, if we can get a little bit of a flashback to the Dumba that we have seen, then he'll be great. But if he continues that trend, then it's going to be concerning with a guy making $6 million a year and 2 years on that deal after this year.
Right.
He is definitely. I think you're spot on that he is a player that needs to pick it up a little bit.
But I want to bounce back of what you said with the turnover deal. You can't make turnovers unless you're trying to make offensive moves. I think he's just. We have a lot of, Suter used to be a defensive defenseman, not really involved in the O-zone. And, he's on the power play just to maintain the puck. But Matt Dumba, I can definitely see, getting deeper in the center role. I just don't see him on the blue line as much as he should be. So when he has the puck, he's trying to look for holes and maybe even get a couple shots. He's not just let me just pass it and be here to make moves. I think he's more of a, let's try to put the puck in the net kind of guy. And I think that has to do with a lot of the turnovers and stuff last year. But yeah, I don't know. I just like to see, what he would do. I know he's got that role in this team, so it'll really be interesting come this season to see how he, fits with these new defensemen and what happens moving forward. So
Yeah, he's going to be a focal point on this team for sure. Tell you what, we've got time for a few more, so we'll finish our final segment with a couple more bold takes heading into the 2021-2022 season. More to come here on Locked on Wild. This fall, Built Bar is giving you the opportunity to celebrate freedom of choice. If you've never tried a Built Bar before, there are amazing flavors ready for you. They have coconut, cherry barcia, raspberry, mint brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel, strawberry, orange, cookies and cream, and German chocolate. Just got a shipment of cookies and cream in the mailbox, so I'm going to give those a try this week. Raspberry, though, at this point, still in my mind, the best flavor they have. Not only do they have great tasting flavors, Built Bars are amazingly healthy for you too. They each contain 17 to 18 grams of protein, range in calories from 130 to 180, and contain only 4 to 5 grams of sugar and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. So they taste amazing. They're great for you. What's not to love? Plus, Built Bar will definitely not blow a 3-1 lead. So head to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off of your first order. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Final segment of today's episode of Locked on Wild. Seth Topol and Zach Zeman hanging out on a Monday edition of the show. And Zach, we talked about it a little bit. I teased it a little bit in talking about the Tom Kurvers Prospect Showcase. My next bold take is that not one, not two, not three, Matt Boldy, Marco Rossi, Calen Addison, all making the opening day roster for this Wild team.
Yeah, I don't even know. I think a solid 2 will start game 1. I don't know which 2 it may be. I think Addison will probably start. I can totally see him, maybe Jordy Ben, Kulikov, maybe. I can totally see them being juggled like they kind of were. Or they would never been, but Addison's been up and down the lineup in the last couple of years. So that'll be interesting. I like Marco Rossi. We've talked about it forever, how good this guy is, how fast he is, how much he just works out. I'm going to talk about it again. But it's so true, though. You have to start players that are enthusiastic, that have the will, that have the passion, no matter how good they are. I'm such a believer. And if this person is showing your team, how much they want to give it, want to give it their all and stuff like that, want to become a leader right away, you got to play them. I think, guys like Nick Bugstad kind of falling off a little bit. I can totally see players like that getting subbed out and subbed in for Boldy and Rossi. It's their time. They're young. They're ready. I think they're ready to make that jump. I really do. They played exceptionally well together, too. When we were going to go back to it again. It's about time. We're ready. Kaprizov signed the contract. Then you could get everyone in this lineup bussing. I mean, it's about time. What do you say? Well, I want to know what you think about these guys and where they fit. I would like to hear that.
You want to know a great way to make Kevin Fiala real happy this season is to give him Matt Boldy and Marco Rossi as line mates.
Yeah, seriously.
Could you imagine? I mean, if we, and I've seen, and I actually kind of am intrigued by this. I've seen in initial pairings for this team that people are starting to break up the Eriksson Ek, Foligno, and Greenway line to try to get Joel Eriksson Ek with Kirill Kaprizov and Mats Zuccarello to try to help those two out a little bit more with their center spot. I then have seen a Ryan Hartman slotted in with Foligno and Greenway as their center, and I think that profile fits very well for those two. And so then the question becomes, well, who's going to be on the line with Kevin Fiala? I mean, if you go with the likes of Freddie Gaudreau, Nico Sturm, Nick Bugstad, I mean, the options start to kind of thin out a little bit. And so Fiala, and I mean, I guess Victor Rask is an option too, but let's be honest. We tried that and it didn't work. So Kevin Fiala, Matt Boldy, Marco Rossi, speak it into existence. Let's go. Let's make it happen.
Can I play devil's advocate?
You sure can.
Is that line too young? Are they NHL ready together? I know they are individually, but as a team on the same line, will they get punished for that? Well,
That's fair. That's a fair point to make, and I think there is something to that. So if Dean wants to kind of, oh boy. If Dean wants to really play with fire, he could do Kevin Fiala, Marco Rossi, Nico Sturm.
Oh, geez.
And just have the hyperspace lineup, and have Rossi like gasping for air to try to keep up with those two. That would be great. And then, I mean, you could go Boldy, Bugstead, Goudreau / Rask. Honestly, the more and yes, he's going to be on the roster because he's making $4 million. And you really can't trade him at this point.
Right.
The more I look at it, there are compelling cases to be made to not have Victor Rask play a pivotal role on this team.
I just think that Victor Rask could be a good fit with a speedy lineman. I do. I mean, we saw the speediest one of them all, Kirill Kaprizov. I mean, come on. But, you know what I mean? I think he just needs a lower line role with a guy who can bring him up. I mean, it's almost inevitable at this point to switch his line up. There's probably frustration right now in the club without Kirill signed, and there's all just – I can't even imagine what the text chains are between these guys right now. I can't even imagine with that whole contract deal. Oh, my gosh. But – you got to juggle them. Something needs to change. Yeah. Victor Rask probably needs to go at bottom 6, and you got to give Rossi a show or Kevin Fiala a show. You got to get speedy guys who can make a difference, who have proven to make a difference come this preseason. The Kurvers show. I mean, there are people in this lineup that are willing, that are capable of changing this team around. And I think you can place a guy of that caliber with Victor Rask, like a veteran kind of deal, who's played several NHL games, and I think you can get money out of it. I think it can become really successful. It's just about who gets paired with who on what line. It's just a big puzzle, and if you solve it right, your team is going to be successful. It's all about what Billy G can do here. I mean, you can even make an argument for that for the defenseman there. There's going to be the top 4 guys who can be easily juggled. It's so impromptu right now, and it's not 100% penned in. I think they got a little number 2 pencil on the wall right now, and they're racing and writing more. And they're not ready yet. No one is. Yeah. That's why preseason is a thing. So it all depends on what the lines are going to look like. So I think there could be magic come this year.
Well, and the other thing too is Dean Evason has shown that he can plug and play. He can make the line combinations work. He got the Greenway, Eriksson Ek, Foligno line and turned that into a nightmare on defense. So he's certainly capable of doing it. He's just going to have to do it again this year.
Yeah. And what players will he get? What players will he have in his pocket to move around? So it'll be interesting to see who they really decide to go with here.
Yeah. Time will tell. Any final, I'll leave you the final bold take if you have one, Zach.
Okay. You know what? I was thinking about this. We haven't talked about goalies yet. A lot. The starting goalie role. Cam Talbot, you got saved. Kaapo Kähkönen somehow didn't get selected. It's time to step up, boys. I'm going to say it again. Dumba, it's time to step up. But I think Cam Talbot really needs to say, I'm the starter here. I'm here for a reason. They protected me for a reason. Let me show you Kaapo Kähkönen how it's done. I think he's the guy that should always be the default starter. Kaapo Kähkönen can, I think he can kind of learn from Cam Talbot a little bit. I think that'd be kind of nice to see how, that works out between them both, the chemistry that they'll build. Kaapo Kähkönen's a phenomenal goalie. I mean, with him as a backup, it's not stressful whatsoever. He's making $700,000 a year. That's perfect. That's all you can ask for. So I think the Wild goalie situation looks good. Cam Talbot needs to show Kappa Kakinen, hey, this is why I start. So I think Cam Talbot had a fantastic, year and even series against Vegas in the playoffs. And I just think he needs to keep that momentum going while the lines get figured out. And if that goalie situation is stapled in, this team will be successful. So I want to hear what you think on that. I mean, a lot of people like Kappa Kakinen. I like Kappa Kakinen. I'm not saying I don't like him as a starter. I just think that Cam Talbot needs to say, I'm Cam Talbot and I'm here. So
yes, this is a great one as well, because big thing for this year is that we'll be going up against the entirety of the schedule again. And so a lot of people, including myself, thinking that there's going to be a little bit of a drop off, little bit of a regression to the mean after all of the games against all the teams in the West last year. What better time than now for Cam Talbot to double down on his performance last year and say, no, that wasn't a fluke. That's just who I am now. So I like that, and that would go a long way. I said in the show that got posted over the weekends, and I felt like it was a blistering hot take at the time, but the more I think about it, I like it. I think the Central Division hinges on the performance of one player, Darcy Kemper. If he does not have as good of a year as Philip Grubauer did for the Avalanche, they're in trouble. Because there is nobody behind him. So if he slips, and if Talbot has a flurry-ish year this year, or a year like he had last year, the Central will be wide open.
Wide open. It's all about having good goalie tandems nowadays, especially with these new teams coming in and taking them. We saw the destruction of Pittsburgh when Marc-Andre Fleury got taken and how Pittsburgh had to deal with that. But now those teams are established, those teams are made, and it's time to really develop your team's goalie tandems and not worry about any future expansion drafts. So this is the year that goalies get to prove themselves. That you play every team. Kappa Kakinen can start different games that Cam Talbot won't have to. That's inevitable. So there's going to be less inferior teams. Like there's going to be the Buffalo Sabres. There's going to be the New Jersey Devils that come in, and it's all about who can really play against those teams. Well, it's kind of cheesy, but you really got to prove yourself in this league. And if the Avalanche kind of struggle with that whole goalie tandem, it's going to be wide open. And I think the Wild have one of the better tandems in the Central Division, and it will prove to be true come in the standings this year.
Could not agree more. That I think that's a perfect spot to drop it for today. Some great takes and bold predictions for you here to start off your week. Training camp is going to get underway here. We've got preseason games coming up. Zach, you said in 6 days?
I believe it's the 25th. I think the Wild are in St. Louis. I won't be attending, even though I'm an hour and a half away, but I'll keep my eyes on it.
So we've got preseason here before you know it. So now is the best time to make sure that you hit subscribe on the Locked On Wild YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on any of the elite content that we got coming up to gear us up for yet another season of Minnesota Wild hockey. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn notifications on so that you are notified when new videos come up every single day of the week. Make sure to follow the podcast wherever you listen, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of the possible ways. And you can follow us right here on the screen. We don't have to say them anymore, but I will for the listening audience. Of course, my Twitter is at Seth Topes, and Zach is at Zach Zeman _. So make sure to give us a follow for Wild Takes throughout the course of the week and the months and the years to come. And that'll do it for today's episode of Locked On Wild. Make sure you're following along. New episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.